Aren't there three of us who can vote? Angelo, Sebastian, and myself?
Mr. Vieira was not at the last meeting.
Oh, right, okay.
Okay, this is a regular meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment for the Township of Montclair for August 17th, 2022. This meeting has been advertised in accordance with the New Jersey Public Meetings Act by posting the meeting schedule in the Montclair Municipal Building and publishing in the Star Ledger and Montclair Times. This meeting is being live broadcast on both YouTube and local channel 34. This is a virtual public meeting using WebEx where members of the public can join and participate with the link that is available on the Board of Adjustment agenda webpage, or by calling in on the number provided on that page and entering the access code, which will be prominently displayed on screen during the meeting. I will go ahead and call roll. Mr. Harrison?
Here.
Mr. Simon?
Here.
Ms. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Vieira?
Here.
Mr. Moore? And then Mr. Church, Mr. Caulfield, and Mr. McCulloch are all excused this evening. Mr. Sullivan?
Here.
Okay. We have the minutes of the.
Sorry, it looks like Mr. Moore just joined. Mr. Moore,
Hello. Good to
you're
see you all.
present?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, we have the minutes of the July 20th meeting. I don't have any changes to those minutes. Does anyone else have any changes? So someone want to move those minutes?
Move to approve the minutes with no changes.
Jonathan, you have to second. You're
I second.
all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Abstain.
Any abstentions, any no votes? Okay, we have the resolution for the Pisa application on Walnut Street. I just have one change on page 2, number. Actually, I have two changes. Number
I see one.
number 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The seventh line down, delete the word wide after 6 foot. And we then need to renumber 4, 5, and 6 as 3, 4, and 5. Any other changes to that resolution? Okay, someone want to move the resolution with the changes?
Move to approve the resolution with the changes attached.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Okay, then we have the resolution for the day property on Marquette Road. I have a couple changes to that. On line, on number 17 at the bottom of page 2, replace will by is proposed to, so read is proposed to be 17 feet, since we then modified that. Then condition 2 should be revised to read the detached garage shall not exceed the lesser of 17 feet or the height of the 1-story, continuing on with the rest of the sentence. Any other changes to that resolution? Someone want to move the resolution?
Move to approve the resolution with the changes stated.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay. Tommy, you want to announce the postponements?
Yes. So this evening, application number 2796, which is 192 Bellevue Avenue, Dibada Investment, for minor site plan and bulk variances for relocation of a building and an addition and site improvements. That's being carried further to the September 21st, 2022 meeting of the board. And then agenda item 5E, application 2809, which is 107 South Mountain Avenue, Gary Bashur and Shobaa Sherawat. This is being carried also to the September 21st, 2022 meeting.
I am unlikely to be able to attend the September 21st meeting, just as forewarn everyone. Tommy, I will let you know once I know definitively whether I'll be in Folsom that night, which I should know in the next 2 weeks. Okay, the first application is that of Anuraj Bismal. This is an application for bulk variances to construct a covered front porch for property located at 165 Midland Avenue. The property is in the R1 one-family residential zone and is designated on the township tax maps as lot 37 and block 2407. A variance is requested from Montclair Code Section 347-45B1 to allow a front yard setback for a principal structure of 42.51 feet, where 44.59 feet is required. A variance is requested from Montclair Code Section 347-45C1 to allow a side yard setback for a principal structure of 3.09 feet, where 6 feet is required. Are taxes paid? And it's a notice in order.
Yes.
Is the applicant present?
Hi, it's Anuraj. Yes, I'm on the line.
All right, so would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
Yes, I swear to tell the truth.
State your name and address.
My name is Anuraj Bismal at 165 Midland Avenue.
All right, do you want to make a presentation, or do you have any professionals here to make the presentation on your behalf?
I sent through a presentation that was included in the attachment. I'm happy to walk through that if you'd like.
Okay, so why don't you do that?
Okay, so Mr. Bismal, I'm gonna start sharing my screen. So if you're watching, your presentation will be up. Just tell me when to go to the next slide.
Okay, thank you.
And we should mark this presentation as A1. Or are these just the plans? What do we would have here, Tommy?
Yeah,
This is a presentation.
It is a presentation. We'll mark this as A1.
Right. My architect Daniel is on the line as well, in case he's.
Did he call in, or did he?
He called in by phone.
Can you give me the first 6 digits of his number?
Oh. Okay, hold on.
There's quite a few callers, so I just want to make sure I'm getting the right one.
Okay. Just give me a moment.
That's okay.
Okay. The number I have for him is 973-509.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
973-509 is not called in.
Okay, maybe easier to get now. I don't have that.
We have actually we only have 1973 calling in, so I'll just assume that is him.
Okay, thank you.
Hello?
No, this is not him.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna go ahead and mute that person. I don't see another 973 call.
Okay, he's just emailed me his number. It's 201-618.
Got it. Okay. Hello?
Hello?
We can hear you.
Hello? All right, thank you. I was, for
Just
some reason, the
identify-
WebEx I was given was last month, so I'm trying to dial into the WebEx now, but you've got me here.
Okay, so just that, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth
Sure.
in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
State your name and address, please.
Sure, my name is Daniel Kopek, 289 Bay Avenue, Glen Ridge, New Jersey.
And Mr. Kopek, you're a licensed or registered architect in the state of New Jersey, is that correct?
That is correct.
And your license is in good standing?
It is.
Okay.
And I've
so-
presented before this board in the past.
Okay, so I don't know if the applicant's going to present or you're going to present, but whoever is going to can start now.
Okay, I'll start and then
Yep.
you can chip in as needed. So in this presentation, I took the planning considerations that were given to me, and I've prepared a set of responses. What you're seeing here is just an image of the drawing of the porches at the front of my house on 165 Midland Avenue. On the next page, you'll see the response to planning consideration 1. And the consideration is the north property line contains a landscaping buffer that's between me and my neighbors, and it was unclear as to what we're going to do with that buffer. I have agreed with my neighbor that it's been there for ever since I purchased the home in 1997, and we have no plans to change that. Her name is Christy Payne, and on the next page you'll see an email from her where she has responded back to me in agreement with that. So no plan changes to the landscaping buffer. I'll just pause there if there's any questions on that.
You can proceed.
Okay, thank you. Planning consideration number 2 is around the applicant should explain during testimony why the depth of the covered porch can't be reduced by 2 feet to meet the front yard setback requirements. And so there's 3 responses here. The next page is response 2.1. The first response is the dimensions of the porch were designed to allow the inclusion of a dining table and chairs with sufficient access to that. And I've shown a picture later on in the deck of that table with the tape measure out at 10.5 feet. So if you want to just flip down to that photograph so people can see that, it's the one with the table and the red line. So it was designed, with this in mind for outdoor dining. So we go back to the top. The second part of the response, which is response 2.2, is that the extent of this variance varies along the front portion of the home. It's about a foot at the south end of the home and 2 foot at the north end of the home. And this is because the house is not straight to the street. So the house was built a little cookie. And the way you can see that is if you flip down to the very last page, you'll see the diagram. So you can see that it's the red variance is kind of narrower at one end and wider at the other end, and that's because the house is sort of not straight parallel to the curve. So although there is the 2 foot variance, it sort of varies. The variance varies along the length of the property. The third response is I believe there are similar porches of similar size on my street. I spoke with some of my neighbors, and they asked me, they allowed me to take photographs and measurements. 164 Midland Avenue is out to 14 feet and 10 inches, and 159 Midland Avenue is out to 12 feet and 6 inches. And there's photographs of those porches in the next 2 pages time, so you can see those properties. I can't show you the measurements, but those are the visuals. I'll pause there for any questions.
Just proceed. We'll ask questions when you're done with the presentation.
Certainly. Okay. So planning consideration 3 is that the home. I think it's after the table picture. Thank you. So the home on the north side is relatively close to the shared property line. Applicant should explain why the side setback can't maintained? And the answer to this is that the home itself, the main body of the home, is not in line with setback requirements in the first place. The porch doesn't extend beyond the line of the main body of the home. So this is really a problem of just that the home is not in adherence with the setback requirements. And so to the extent we were to reduce that, reduce the size of the porch, it would end up bisecting one of the windows. And the way to see that is if you look at the very last page again, you can see the variance in red. What we're talking about is the top part of the page. The porch just sort of tucked into the main body of the home. The main body of the home is out of variance, as it were, and so the porch just sort of follows that. So it's just following the aesthetics of the build of the home. That's response number 3. Planning consideration number 4 is around the landscaping that is currently at the front of the home should be salvaged and replanted. Completely agreed with this, and we have lined up my friend, actually Lana Mustafa, who's a director at Montclair Community Farms, and she's going to help us with plants and location, so we can relocate that shrubbery on the property itself. That is the extent of the responses. I'm happy to take questions.
Ms. Harris, do you have any questions?
Well, yeah, can you back up and just, or maybe your architect can tell us, talk about the existing conditions and then what you're intending to do?
So this is Dan Kopek, the architect. The existing home is a center hall colonial with a side gable facing Midland Avenue with a central portico and steps, 2 steps down to grade. The intent is to remove that central portico and replace it with a porch that runs the width of the primary 2-story volume of the home. The porch wouldn't extend to the 1-story sunroom on the south side. The reason we're seeking the variance, as my client has enumerated, is the porch design would encroach on the average front yard setback, as mentioned, by less than a foot on the south side and slightly more than 2 feet on the north side. And then, given the existing placement of the home, and I'm referencing drawing number 2, the site plan on sheet G-100 in the drawings that were submitted. That drawing shows the site plan and a dashed in red area of the porch that is both over the front yard and side yard setbacks. Given the location of the current home, particularly the side yard setback, can't be met while making the porch fit the properly sort of fit the balance and symmetry of the existing structure.
And could the porch be made a little bit narrower on the facade of the front facade of the house by just spacing the columns differently so that you can get closer to the side yard setback?
I worry then if we go to the second sheet in the submitted drawings, A-100, in drawing number 1, the west street elevation, you'll see that the way that the project has been designed, the columns line up between the windows and the door. Structurally, and I was very careful to make this to make the project as minimal to the north side as possible, and so the roof slopes back on that side. If I were to bring the north edge of the porch within the side yard boundary, that column would land in in front of the window, which would mean that the beam carrying the weight of the porch would come back into the building along the top of that window. And structurally speaking, we can physically make that happen, but it would just not look structurally correct to have the weight of that porch landing on the head of a window. And I think it would end up being more odd than we're trying to seek the variance here, because I think we're making a porch that feels properly proportioned to the home, not increasing bulk, not impacting light and air to the neighbor, I don't think there's a deleterious effect on the neighbor to the north because of this extension to the property.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay, Mr. Moore, do you have any questions?
No questions at the moment.
Mr. Simon?
Yes, thank you. The current steps, are those within the side yard setback?
No, the current stoop,
Yes.
as shown, you can see it on the same sheet, A-100, drawing number 2, floor plan. You see the dashed line of the existing stoop in the middle there with the 2 columns that would be removed. That's only at the front entrance door, and it extends out about 7 feet or 8 feet from the house.
And that's currently not in compliance.
It is currently in compliance.
It is in compliance. Okay.
The front stoop is in compliance. The house is currently not in compliance because the house is built both too close to the north and south side yard setbacks, as you can see by going back to sheet G-100.
I'm just referring to the porch right now. I understand the second.
Correct.
All right. So
Right.
regarding the neighbors' porches, which you referenced, which the applicant referenced, do you know, are those houses set further back than yours, so which would allow their porches to be in compliance? Are they all
So when
starting
I
at the
spoke
same
to
level?
on drawing number 2 site plan on sheet G-100, I went out and measured physically from the curb to the front of the house and front of the porch of the properties, both north and south. I shot that with a laser from the street, and where I got permission from someone, I used a tape measure to measure those. So I measured those at one point, and as my client mentioned, his house happens to be not perfectly parallel to Midland Avenue, and so it's possible that there's some variation there, but those dimensions on that site plan were made by me in the field, both to front face of the structure and the front of the stoop or porch, and that established the front yard setback, as I understand it from the municipal ordinance, to be the average of the 3 properties on either side of you on your side of the street.
So those were so they're effectively at the same starting point?
Well, so you can see lot number 34, which is on the bottom there, is about 2 feet or 3 feet beyond the average. The lot 35 is slightly beyond the average. Lot 36 is about 2 feet inside. Lots 38, 39, and 40 are almost all exactly on that average line. So there is some variation. I certainly do not think we are not projecting any closer to the street than the closest current property, which would be lot number 34.
Okay.
And also not projecting closer to the street with a solid volume. This would just be an open porch, open columns, and just a roof.
Okay. And in terms of, were there any other designs considered for the porch that would have allowed you to be within the compliance, not requiring the setback in that direction.
Yes, we looked at the depth of the porch was driven by the program from my client in order to fit their use on the space under the roof.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Vieira, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just following up with what my colleague, Mr. Simon, asked regarding question, I guess, planning consideration number 3. In your response, you say that the porch's northern line will bisect one of the windows. So my question is, did you consider another design where you essentially eliminate the 2 columns on both sides and basically shrinking the length? Was that ever considered?
We looked at several different options here from a typological condition. Most of the homes, as are shown in some of the photographs that my client has submitted, have either an entrance portico that covers just the central bay over the door, or a front porch that spans the full front of the house. In my experience, I have not seen a porch that would span 3 of the 5 bays of the front of the home and look like an accurate proposal to add to a home like this. It's my intention as an architect who practices in town to make something that is complementary to the existing historic structures here. Right? We're talking about structures that are 100 years old. Front porches are a component, a feature on many of these homes. I think that they are not only an architecturally interesting piece, but they're also a very friendly and neighborly gesture of a home to the public right of way. And so having a porch that feels like it's always been there is my intention as an architect. And so it just so happens that this home is currently built too close to the property line. I would like to make a porch, or propose to make a porch that fits the character of the home and thusly fits the character of the township.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess the last question is regarding stormwater management of the rainwater. Where will that go? The southern side of the porch?
We're actually on sheet G-100. You'll notice that we're removing a significant amount of impervious pavement. And so while we're increasing the roof structure of this, we have a net increase of impervious coverage of only 85 square feet. And the intent is to take the existing native planting that my client has in front of their stoop and have that as a garden in the front yard. Water would be distributed out into that same space. I don't foresee a stormwater issue from this improvement.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a couple questions. Let me follow up on the stormwater. I mean, the pavement that's being removed is on the south side of the house. Is that correct? Largely on the south side?
It spans across, but it is mostly on the south side.
Okay, so just so I understand in terms of the not being much of a net increase in total stormwater, but what is happening to the stormwater from the roof on the south side? On the north side?
The primary roof of the home has a gutter that spans across the front and leaders on both the north and the south side that discharge onto a splash block on the front lawn on both sides. And on both sides, it lands in a small bit of pervious landscaping, but there is a significant amount of impervious paving on both sides. The intent here would be to make sure that we distribute all of the roof leaders into the pervious planting bed.
Okay, so, and the splash structure, is that pointed towards the street?
They discharge toward the street, correct?
Are there going to be gutters and downspouts for the porch addition?
Yes, there will be. There's a gutter noted on the cross section on sheet G A-300. That would wrap all three sides of the porch, and it would discharge into that planting bed to the west, which is toward the street, but is 50 feet away from the street.
You know, I'm not concerned about it reaching the street. So that it would go down. I'm concerned about the north side due to the proximity to that property line and the neighbor's house. It would go down. There'd be a leader going down on the north side of the porch addition that would direct into that planting area that will be partially relocated.
Correct.
Okay. And then my understanding of the plans, you're indenting by a couple of inches from the edge of the house, which enables you to slightly increase the side yard setback on the north side. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, because if you followed the line of the house, you'd actually be getting closer to the side yards.
Correct. The closest point of the house is currently 2.87 feet, and the closest point of our proposed porch would be 3.09 feet.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the board? Okay. Are there any members of the public who either have questions, testimony, statements, anything you want to say about the application? We will now unmute all mics. And if you want to say something, start speaking up. And anyone who's watching on channel 34 or on the town's YouTube station, dial in. We will put the number on the screen shortly so you know the number to dial in, which is lengthy with the access code, but we'll pause a little bit in case anyone does have any comments or question on the application. This will be your only chance to ask questions or give testimony or make comments on the application. So if you use WebEx or you otherwise dialed in already, please speak up. And if you're calling in, please do so as quickly as you can. Dial the nice long, well, it's a regular number plus the long access code, and we'll wait a minute or so to give you a chance to dial in. Okay. Seeing or hearing no one, we will march forward. Okay, Mr. Bismal, Mr. Kopeck, do you have anything further you want to add before we discuss and vote on the application?
Not for me. Thank you for your time today.
Okay, we'll start discussion with Ms. Harris.
I'm in favor of the application, even though I think that the porch can be made smaller and still make sense on this facade. I actually don't think the porch as designed works with this style of home, but I think that the existing house is already close to the property line and the porch is a little bit further away. And the front yard setback, I have no issue with that because like the applicant said, the house is not parallel to the street, so it would be a little bit hard to meet that requirement. So I am in favor of this application.
Mr. Moore?
I am generally in favor of the application.
Mr. Simon?
I'm also generally in favor. I do have a concern about the front porch width and the variance required just for, what appears to be an aesthetic. But since it really has minimal impact to anyone else outside of the home, I would not have a problem approving. So I'm in favor.
Mr. Vieira?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm also in favor of the application. I think this application is not a detriment to the general public. The house is already outside of the boundary on the northern side on the setbacks, so it will be difficult to even try to comply. Will aesthetically will not be pleasing. I guess the only condition maybe if we can add is regarding the stormwater management, that it will be directed away from the neighbor, especially because the property on the northern side is too close. So it will be away from that side. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm also in favor of the application. As to the front yard setback, well, I think they might have reduced it. I think given the varied setbacks of the neighboring houses, but all are within a fairly narrow range. This house will get somewhat closer, but is not going to stick out from the others in the neighborhood that are also within the average setback. So I don't have a problem with that variance. On the side yard, I think they've demonstrated that there are practical issues given where the windows are in the house with shrinking the porch without shrinking it substantially. I think they have somewhat improved the setback from the existing house's setback. So they did take that into consideration and have a slightly larger setback for the porch than the existing house has at its northwest corner. I think we should do two conditions. Stormwater condition, as Mr. Vieira stated, that the stormwater from the north side of the house and the addition be directed so it does not go towards the neighbor's property. And the second is that to the extent feasible, they relocate any plantings that will be disturbed in front of the house elsewhere within the front yard. Any other comments from members of the board? If not, is there a motion to approve the application with those conditions?
Motion to approve the application with the conditions specified by the chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Go build your porch, get your construction permits.
Thank you very much for your time.
The next application is that of Montclair Kimberly Academy Foundation. This is for property located at 201 Valley Road. This is an application for an amended site plan approval. The property is located in the R11 family zone, as designated on the township tax maps as block 1515, lots 1 and 12. The applicant is requesting the amended site plan approval for the following changes in the improved plans: installation of a new underground stormwater infrastructure in the southwest portion of the site, removal of up to 19 additional trees along the southern property line to accommodate the new board-on-board fence, planting of sweet gum trees and 11 skip laurel trees, and improvements to the existing courtyard, including removal of existing pavement and 5 existing trees. I assume they're exempt from property taxes. Is the notice in order?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Trembulac, are you ready to proceed?
I am, Mr. Chair. Do you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. All right. Good evening, members of the board. For the record, Alan Trembulac appearing on behalf of the applicant Montclair Kimberly Academy. As the chairman already indicated by reading the notice, this is an application for amended site plan approval relating to the Montclair Kimberly Academy Middle School located at 201 Valley Road. As the board members will recall, earlier this year, the board granted final site plan approval for reconfiguration of the athletic fields on this property and other site improvements relating to the athletic fields and the reconfiguration project, including substantial drainage improvements. As you probably know, the site is under construction. A lot of work has been done. A lot of work remains to be done. When the application was approved several months ago, subject to various conditions, one of those conditions related to a concern regarding drainage, specifically condition number 11 in the prior approval resolution, provided that the applicant was responsible for correcting any adverse drainage impacts which may be uncovered or revealed in the course of construction. We're here this evening seeking amended site plan approval because, as it turns out, during construction, it was determined that additional drainage improvements were required. And in order to implement those improvements, there's a need to remove some additional trees and to revise the landscaping plan previously approved by the board as part of the site plan approval. So the revisions, which our engineer will discuss in a few moments in detail, involve drainage improvements, as I've indicated, revisions to the landscape plan. We're also proposing some modifications and improvements to the courtyard area, which includes some new retaining walls, new pavers, some landscaping improvements in the courtyard and other improvements, and also installation of a new 25-foot flagpole. So what I'd like to do this evening is to call as our witness the project engineer, Robert Walsh, to review the site plan revisions for the board. So hopefully Mr. Walsh is on the call.
Mr. Walsh, are you present?
Mr. Walsh is on the attendee list. I'm not able to make him a panelist, but I did unmute him.
So Mr. Walsh, are you present?
Yeah.
And if he called in, then as well, if you can provide me his number, then I can unmute him that way. But it looks like he's on with a headset, but I'm not able to unmute him. Or I did unmute him, but I'm not able to make him a panelist.
Yeah, sure, he's trying to. Well, you might want to call in. Yeah. Mr. Chair, I just reached Mr. Walsh by phone. He's going to call in as soon as he can locate the number.
You can put it up on the screen.
Rob. He's gonna put the number on the screen there. Look at it. You see it? Okay, all right. I think he's calling in now.
Okay, and his number is it a 908?
Yes.
I just checked his email. I don't see a 908 at the moment. Okay, I think we got him. Great. All right, Mr. Walsh, you're unmuted. Mr. Walsh?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Okay. Mr. Walsh, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
Yes, I do.
State your name and address, please.
Robert E. Walsh, 701 New Brunswick Avenue, Phillipsburg, New Jersey.
Okay. Mr. Walsh, you're a licensed professional engineer of the state of New Jersey, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you prepared the preliminary and the final site plans for this project, which were previously reviewed by and approved by this board, correct?
That's correct.
And you also prepared the revised site plan that is the subject of this hearing tonight, correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and is your license as a professional planner valid and in good standing?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chair, if I may, I'll just proceed and ask Mr. Walsh. Rob, if you can, I'd like you to review the site plan revisions. And I'm sure you're gonna want Tommy to pull up an exhibit to assist you in discussing the revisions with the board. Do you want the site plan or one of the documents you
Yeah,
submitted?
so if Tommy could I sent him the same site plan that we have submitted. However, to facilitate addressing Maurice's comments, I put a blue bubble around some of the features we're going to talk about tonight.
All right. Yeah.
Let me see if I can figure out which one of these. Maybe this one. Just trying to see if there's blue bubbles on this one. Sorry.
No, that's an older version, I think.
Okay.
That looks like it. It's got I could see
this one,
the bubble around the landscape notes on C1.
Oh yes, okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's perfect. Perfect.
All right. Since this is slightly different because you have additional notes from the plans submitted to the board. I assume we should mark this as an exhibit, I guess A1.
Yeah, yes, we'll call it Exhibit A1. What sheet is that, Mr. Walsh, that you marked?
Okay, what I'd like to do is, if it's okay with the board, is this PDF is the entire set of drawings that contain some blue marks on it. So as a document, and it's the same set that was submitted to the board. However, there are some blue markings on it that I've highlighted to refer to some of the comments made by the board's engineer.
All right, so you want to mark the entire set collectively as Exhibit A1, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, we can do that.
Correct. Excellent. Now, for the purposes of the revisions, this PDF has, with the exception of the field striping that's shown on the second sheet here, we've bubbled and put a little triangle indicating the revision that was made to the plans subsequent to the March 14th submittal that was in accordance with the resolution of approval. So I guess we should just go through the sheets individually, and as a matter, it's not bubbled on the first sheet, but we inadvertently neglected to update the lot coverage on sheet 1 in the revision, or excuse me, in the zoning data from the tennis courts project which occurred a couple of years prior to this project. So that's been done, and I think it's 0.12 percent, or 0.12 acres of increased impervious coverage, which is below the requirement. As any of you may recall from the tennis court project, we replaced 6 tennis courts with 5 and ended up getting a net significant reduction in the impervious coverage for the property. So on this project, we added some sidewalks that resulted in now the courtyard work that we did that resulted in a net increase of 0.12 acres. So that's been corrected, and I neglected to bubble that on this sheet, but it went from like 35.2 to 35.33 or something like that. So next sheet is the C01, which bubbles the areas of additional tree removal. And again, the reason for the tree removal, the additional tree removal, is primarily to do with modifications to the drainage we wanted to do that, or in some cases, we were being hopeful that we wouldn't have to remove certain trees where we were installing new drainage. And it just turns out just the size of the equipment, doing the excavation, the backhoe swing capability to load trucks and stuff, just weren't able to do it with leaving all the trees in place. And that occurred in a couple locations. And again, this plan has been revised with the red bubble showing the additional trees to be removed, with a note we've added in the upper left-hand corner, said tree removal notes, that we're going to make every attempt to keep the trees and not remove them unless they're necessary. But I think we wanted to show to the maximum extent they would possibly be removed. And as an example, if you look on the right-hand side of this C01, you'll see a 42-inch tree that's out by Central Avenue that the contractor was saying we absolutely had to take down. And then we fought with him and said, listen, because we were putting a sidewalk next to it, be the upper right, Tommy. And we were able to convince him that, you don't need to take that down, carve out like a portion of the roots. And so the sidewalk went in fine. That tree will remain. It does not have to be removed. And if we go down to the lower right-hand corner where you see, unfortunately, what happened with the base survey there ended up being, we had located 10 trees in that corner, and we built the design around those trees, preserving the pine trees that are there. And for whatever reason, the surveyor neglected to get 10 trees that were further to the west basically behind the existing bleachers that are shown there where that number 13 is. So those were added to the plan. And since we designed the turf limits and the grading with the expectation there were no trees there, there was no way we approved the shot drawings, everything's pretty much etched in stone. We tried to preserve them. We ended up having to take out 4 trees initially of the 10 that because of the limits of the synthetic turf, and now it turns out we have to take out the remaining 6 in that location that's bubbled in red to accommodate the drainage and leave room for the trees that we're proposing to put there because we didn't think there were any trees there. So that area, we'll refer to the landscaping plan later, where those trees are coming out, but they're being, as originally planned, they're being replaced with new trees. And we're adding trees right up to lot number 3. And I think the property owner lot number 3, Steve Humphreys, had concerns about that. And he's since notified us by email now that we've got the replantings in there. From what I can tell, he's pretty happy with what we've done. So then I'd like to move along to that area in blue that's bubbled. That's a tree, 24-inch tree that we were hopefully going to save, but it turns out the tree in reality was growing in at a 45-degree angle, and it was substantially tied to the mini retaining wall that was along that property line that serves as a channelization of overland relief of stormwater. So in order to take the wall out and put the new wall in, that was never going to survive. And plus it's in the path of the overland relief. So that's why that 24-inch had to come out. And then if you go to the left, the one by lot number 4, that was in the fence line and there was no way to save it without, we had to put in order to install one panel of the fence. So again, we're re-landscaping that end of the property. And then there's another tree that had to be removed a 12-inch further to the left, as shown on the screen, and that was a result of the need to install the new fence. Now the area between the school gymnasium, which is that portion of the school, the southernmost portion of the school, and the existing property line, we had a storm inlet that we proposed in there, and the 4 trees closest to the field or furthest to the east or right, it was kind of, I guess, wishful thinking on my part to think that we can get a storm line in there. And the trees have they're evergreen trees with a significant canopy, aside from what's shown in plan, that we just couldn't really, we could install the drainage and trim the branches back, but they would die because it would impact the roots and the overhanging branches so much. So those are being replaced. So those 4 in that group south of the building, furthest to the right, are needed to be removed based on the original approved construction. We had rose-colored glasses on when we designed it, and now just the reality is they had to come out, and we're going to replace it with new landscaping. Now, the other part, the remaining trees in there, and again, I'm going to refer to the note in the upper left if you guys get a chance to look at it. We're going to try to keep as many trees as possible. We want to run the storm line up the side of the property because the floor elevation of the gym is 328.08. The grade outside is higher. The grade from the exterior of the building to the low point of the existing swale in there, which is almost non-existent, because the existing vegetation and the root system has just spread out in such a fashion where it's blocking the overland flow. So we want to install an extension of what was improved up to the left-hand portion of that site. And I have another exhibit. Marisa had asked me to turn on all of the trees to be removed on the grading and drainage plan, which will be exhibit A2, which I'll show you later. And again, we think we need to remove this mainly because of constructability. The root systems, the branches interfere with the ability to construct what we want to construct there. So at this point, are there any questions relative to this existing conditions and site demolition portion of the A1 exhibit?
Why don't you go through your whole presentation? Because I think some of this is
Okay,
going to
that'd be fine. I'm good with that. So again, Tommy, if you just wanted to go, let's go up to the note in the upper left so everybody understands our desire to not, to try to preserve the trees that are there. And I'll just read it out. Tree removal shown represents a maximum number of trees that may be required removal due to potential root system conflicts with proposed construction or due to construction equipment access to install new construction. The applicant will make every attempt to preserve existing trees that do not require removal. And one other thing, and I'm going to expand on later, is that there's a storm drainage line that we've TV'd on Friday that's owned by the town that runs from Valley Road all the way down to Central. It's a 20-inch clay line. We didn't know the condition of it. We couldn't find it until we started construction because a lot of those trees were constructed directly on top of it. Fortunately, when we TV'd it, there are some cracks and some, it's an old line, but the line was not blocked by root systems or anything like that. It was a clear passage, and there was no collapsing sections, although there was evidence of repairs. So that combined with there are aerial electric and telecommunication lines that run down that property line that serve the school as well as the adjoining properties. And those trees interfered with that, and it just wasn't being maintained by, in terms of storm drainage with the vegetation or the area lines. So what we're proposing in terms of a landscape plan for that southern boundary is to have shallow root evergreen trees that will get up to 12 feet or possibly higher, but try not to interfere with the area lines. And then also be trees that if you had to remove them and then do some reconstructive work, they can be easily replaced with and don't have extensive root systems. If we go to this plan, nothing's really changed on this plan. I've just highlighted that area that I've indicated in blue to show that, that's on C2, that, let me see, yeah, now I can see it. That's what those were the trees that were going to remain except for, there's two more that got removed out of there because we revised the drainage to avoid that area for existing trees or proposed trees that we're installing. So the bypass line that goes down to Central is being now run through the field. You'll see it on a subsequent area, but you can see how tight our soccer field is to the edge there. So we want to maintain the originally designed grading that's just outside the limits of the synthetic turf. And again, that's in reference to Boswell comment 9. You can keep going, Tommy. Now, this is the courtyard, and just a little bit about the courtyard. The applicant, in view of the extent of the proposed work, as kind of an afterthought, this plan got preliminary approval in February of 2020, was looking at the grand scheme of things and saying, we better do this, rebuild this courtyard now to make it a more complete looking project. So everything, it's not an afterthought to do this. So what was done here was we leveled the playground area where they currently have a, what is that court called? The hexagonal court, Gaga court. Make it the same level as the tetherball and to provide ADA access between the two entrances in the building and add some landscaping and put brick pavers in there, kind of beautify it and make it match the new construction or be, like I say, not an afterthought. So in there, we took down 4 or 5 small existing shade trees, but again, we're replanting that area, and you'll see that on the landscaping plan. And the blue areas are relative to Maurice's comment, stating that we had not provided bottom of the wall elevations, but we've highlighted in blue what the bottom of the wall elevations are, as well as the full height of the wall. The wall's maximum height is 3.5 feet in any one place. And again, in keeping with the zoning requirement for the maximum combined height of a retaining wall with a fence directly on top of it, we offset the fence, the height of the retaining wall back, and we put landscape plantings between the fence and the top of the retaining wall, so we're not violating that ordinance requirement as well as the condition where we only have that fence directly on top of the wall where it's immediately adjacent to the soft surface play area on the just south of this courtyard area. Just so you don't know the drawing. So we're maintaining that. I think the distance was 113 feet that we can have the fence on directly on top of the wall. So that hasn't changed. You can go to the next sheet. So on this plan, in the upper left-hand corner, Marisa wanted us to show, this refers to, if you can slide down the sheet a little bit, we're replacing that wall at the lower right-hand that channelizes the overland flow. And I refer to the profile in the upper left. Marisa wanted a spot elevations, maximum top of wall. So what we did was you generated a profile, which I think illustrates what we're doing there. It's basically a replacement in kind of the wall that was severely deteriorated at that corner of the property. And we realized after the fact that we always had the removal of the wall, but I didn't recognize how functional that was in aiding in the channelization of any overland relief as not to go on the adjoining property. So we've included that in the project. And again, I would consider that a drainage improvement for the benefit of the adjoining property owners and as well as the town. And just, it's not bubbled on here because Maurice had already reviewed this on a prior, submittal. We've added sections of, within the middle group of drainage system, we added laterals like 3-4 runs of 50-foot runs of 24-inch pipe, exactly right there, as well as adding to the, what is subsurface system number 1, which is closer to the school. We've added lengths of pipe in there. Just in order, I know the system, once I think the suburban engineers reviewed it and commented that it was greatly over-designed, greatly reducing the runoff, but the district, or the school wanted us to go the extra mile and just add additional storm subsurface storage area. And I just want to say, what I've been told by the contractor is that, we did a geotechnical investigation on this. It's very clay material, and except for by the school, there's almost like alluvial granular material that drains well. What I've been told by the contractors, they've hit in the other drainage systems that similar material. So the conservative approach of no infiltration we took on 2/3 of the system will actually infiltrate it to the ground. And then hopefully that will be an additional benefit on top of everything else. And in the lower left, Tommy, I just want to go in there and show the additional length of pipe, what we're doing there, which requires that tree removal. So we have 100 linear feet of 24-inch that we're running up the side, that we're replacing the existing 15-inch that comes around the side of the school and just discharges the grade. And we're adding an inlet to capture the overland flow that comes from Valley Road, because for those people who are unaware, Valley Road has I believe it's a 24-inch pipe that drains from the street above, and that has, that's collection system, according to the city maps, has large-sized pipes converging down to one smaller 24-inch pipe and then going into the 20-inch pipe that's on the subject property, which is part of the reason for our additional line that was part of the original approval. We're just extending it an additional 100 feet to capture, get another inlet 1A in there to pick up overland flow. You can go to the next sheet. Nothing's changed on here. Everything's still the same on that sheet. Nothing's changed there on the detail sheet for the dugouts. Storm drainage outlet structures and construction details remain unchanged. The soil erosion plan, I have not bubbled it up, but this has been approved. We've sent this into soil conservation. It's identical to, in terms of the storm drainage, to what's shown on the drainage plan. It shows the courtyard. This has been certified by the Soil Conservation District. And these are the details, remain the same for soil erosion. The section on the left, we've just added in the storm pipe that was recently TV'd, and you can see there's the utility pole that runs down that property line, and our intent is to have the smaller, I think that shrub that's just above the pipe is a skip laurel, which is a year-round evergreen tree that does well in the shade. That's a pretty shady part of the site. It gets to a maximum height of 12 to 15 feet.
Sorry about that.
So so it shouldn't interfere with the above ground area lines. And again, as I've said earlier, that root system associated with them is kind of shallow. It won't be intrusive. And the same, and in some cases we have the green arbs or the giant arbs, which is a similar, although they do get taller, they're an effective street for the neighbors. And I know the neighbors are concerned with the, the visual impact with landscaping. So we've maintained that, and I know there's a concern about native planting. So if you go back one drawing, Tommy, you'll see that we put the sweet gums, which the slender silhouette ones that will grow tall and provide a kind of an overstory screen along the face of the building. And leaving this area open, the area between the two levels, if you will, of landscaping will allow for storm drainage maintenance in that area. If anybody remembers Hurricane Ida, the storm system below the ground couldn't handle, no storm system can handle it below grade, but so you need to focus on overland relief in the new world. So that's why and again, the desire to keep existing landscaping still remains. And Tom, if you want to go to that other exhibit I did that shows all of the trees that are being removed, the ones that were previously approved, and then the ones that, so one sheeter, there you go. So you can see, I think this tells a story with the blue. You can, the one in the upper right, that's not coming out anymore. There are a few, and again, these are the combined previously approved plus what we're asking approval for now. And let's go to the lower right, if you could. So what we did here was this storm line that I've bubbled in red, that continued straight, and then it jogged right at the last blue tree to the right, and then went down out to the street. Once we found out that group of 10 blue trees that were missing from the plan but existing, there was nothing really we could do about it. And it may seem like in Maurice's comments, well, now that you moved to here, can't we keep those trees? Well, the thing is, they got to come out now because of grading and the limits of the turf. But what we're doing is we're still, as originally planned, planning landscaping in there. And as I stated before, I think Mr. Humphreys thinks it looks good. What we've done by running, diverting, or deflecting the storm line into the synthetic turf limits over towards that triangle number 3, and then we selectively picked the best point to cut through the existing trees. So we had to take out 2 more trees, but again, we have landscaping to go back in there. And that's basically the story down there. You have a tree that I put a blue box around by inlet or manhole number 3. That was for the fence. There's the one along the wall. That's a deciduous 24-inch tree just north of manhole, the written description for manhole number 4. That one was due to the curb that's getting replaced, the curb wall. And then you have, you really have 2 trees that are getting removed and then replaced with landscaping that have boxes around them along the southern property line. The one with the boxes are new ones that are getting removed. The other 3 were on the base, or the other 2 were on the previously approved plan. And then, as I stated previously, all of the evergreens and deciduous in that area to the left are new ones that we're indicating they may be the maximum amount of trees that we need to remove in that area, but we didn't want to short, we want to just say, listen, this is going to be the max, and I refer back to the tree removal note. We don't want to be overly optimistic like we were previously on the impact of trees.
Okay.
That's it for a summary on the plans.
Just a couple of follow-up questions. I think you covered most of the comments in the board engineer's report. Just a couple of things. Comment number 11 requested a videotape of the drainage. I believe that's been done and submitted. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It was performed on Friday, and as I'm very pleased with the fact that it wasn't clogged and collapsed or anything like that. He was able to TV all the way from Valley down to Central, and we forwarded that the results of that to Marisa and to Tommy and to whomever. And I've briefly got a chance to quickly look at the first 100 feet or so of the videotape, and I think it's about 700 and something feet altogether.
Okay, and I know you addressed all of her comments regarding the tree removal. And just so I'm clear, her comments 5 and 6 regarding the wall details, I think you indicated that those now been provided, and which you indicated on the plans. So those comments have also been addressed. I think that's all we have for Mr. Walsh, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Harris, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. So I just want to make sure I understand. Up to 29 trees will be removed, and you're proposing to replace them with possibly, is it 19 or 20 trees? Is that right?
Well, let me just see. I look at it as go to the right exhibit. If you look at the C0 or C8 plan that was submitted, which is the landscaping plan, we are proposing 90 trees on the project site.
90 new trees.
90 new trees, and
from the original site plan, how many were you initially proposing?
I happen to just, do I have that open? Do not have it. Hang on just a second. We had 76 trees previously, 76 new trees on the revised per resolution plan. And what do we have now? 90?
90?
I had to count them up because we didn't have them full. Hang on a second. And 90. So it's 14. 14 additional trees.
Okay, but you can possibly take out up to 29.
I think that's the number, yeah.
Okay. And what size,
Again,
the skip laurel trees and the arborvitae that you're proposing along the fence line here, what size are they when they're planted?
I think 6 to 8 is my typical for that size. 6 to 8 feet, yes.
At the time of planting, or is that the mature height?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they'll get to, the skip laurels will get to, in that area, they'll get to 12 feet pretty rapidly.
Okay. And the arborvitaes, are these are green giants, so
They'll go. They'll probably got to trim them. But they're easy to trim if they're underneath those power lines. They can be easily maintained to a height that wouldn't interfere with that.
Okay. And just to confirm, there's no, I see these, the soccer courts are red on this plan, but there's no changes proposed to the striping here. Is that right?
Oh, the athletic field striping?
Yeah.
Yeah, no change.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Moore, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just a simple one. So with with all the removal of the trees, are you replacing each of them by one as well, or not?
Oh, we're providing, I guess it's 29 that are being removed.
How many will you be putting in out of the 29?
Well, we're proposing 90 trees total.
You've answered my question. Thank you.
Mr. Simon, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just going back to item 7 on the engineer's report. It mentions what was originally planned was the 3 24-inch pipes, and you're just reducing that down to 1. It seems like
Okay. Yeah, so I was being overly aggressive because the condition on between the school and the southern properties, like at that southeast corner, or excuse me, southwest corner, I had put in, rather than 1 pipe, which is currently shown there, I had an overkill of 3 parallel pipes that I ran it by Marisa, and she didn't have a negative comment about it. But then as we discovered that the 20-inch pipe was intact and, we were providing appropriate grading there, and we felt as though, and with the concern about the trees, we decided to take out 2 of the parallel pipes, and so that would leave more room for landscaping or preservation of existing trees.
So the 24-inch pipe is going to replace an existing 20-inch pipe? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's going to be a new, it's actually replacing, in that particular section of the site, it's replacing a 12 or 15-inch pipe. It's labeled, I'm not sure what it's labeled there in that location. It is it's a 12-inch PVC pipe. The 12-inch PVC pipe that runs along the front of the school parallel to Valley Road, goes into a manhole, and then it turns and it comes out and discharges onto the field. We're picking up that pipe, and we're doing it with a 24-inch pipe that is a 24-inch pipe, because it's picking up the overland flow at that point from Valley, as well as whatever's in that 12-inch PVC pipe.
So then,
Oh.
if you're not, so are you still intending to remove all 15 trees that was specified with the original plan?
Again, we're going to rely on our efforts to maintain the trees. See, the problem is we have a contractor on the job who says, "Oh, well, I'm not going to be able to get a machine in there. I can't move this," and we have to work with the guy every day and say, "Listen, you could still keep this tree, or you can, or maybe we just take these branches off." So that's the basis of the note. And again, in that one area of the site, we're installing new appropriate landscaping, and we're making room to put the one pipe in. And Marissa's point, if, I don't know, Tommy, do you have it still up? Those 3 blue trees furthest to the left, they may very well be able to be kept. So, but I don't, right. So I don't, as much as it shows like a little symbol for a tree, they're bigger than that. So when they put that storm inlet in, and again, we didn't want to have to come back and say, well, you know what, it turns out we have to take out one more tree. So let's go back to the zoning. So again, I think we're going to try and keep them, but that represents the maximum that we would remove. And if we do have to remove it and we can, we feel that we can put in more trees, the native ones, the closer to the building, we can do that.
Okay. Regarding point 8, it mentions the trees along the fence line. Now that fence is already in place. Has that part already been occurred?
Yes.
So those trees were you able to align the fence, or those trees have already been removed?
The trees have been removed, the fence is in a straight line, and the trees that required removal are only 2 additional trees due to the fence, and then 1 additional tree due to the wall that functions as to channelize overland flow. So those trees were not award winners, if I must say. So we felt that to get a fence nicely aligned and then put new landscaping in front of the fence on the school side would be a more effective screen.
Okay, thank you. No other questions.
Mr. Vieira, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Walsh, you mentioned that there was a clay pipe for stormwater. Is that being disturbed, or that you're not touching that line?
We are not touching that. We've repaired it where we noticed it was damaged, or there was a blind connection of a storm line that tied into it, and we built a drainage structure over top of it so that it's not a hidden connection. It could be accessed, observed, inspected in the future.
Yeah, and as far as sorry, go ahead.
Again, I'll defer to. I have not done a full inspection of the line, like looking at the videotape, but I was pretty surprised to see that it was intact as much as it was. But it's not blocked. It carries the flow. It's just severely undersized.
Undersized. Yep. And as far as I can tell, you're not conveying any stormwater from the property into any existing lines. Is that correct?
No, we're the stormwater runoff associated with this development, directly associated with this development, is occurring within the footprint of the field, and that's all been reduced by like a really, by 50%, assuming, for various storms, assuming various relatively conservative conditions.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I have a number of questions, and I want to go back over. Under the plans we approved by resolution on March 2nd, how many trees were going to be removed?
3.
Okay, and you're now proposing to remove 29 trees or 26 in addition to what was shown then?
26, that's correct.
And how many of those 26 have already been removed?
5 in the courtyard, 2 at the fence line, that's 7. 1 at the retaining wall that's being replaced, the mini retaining wall. And then 4 of the 10 that were missing from the plan. So that, what does that equal? 7 and 5, 12.
So almost half of what you're proposing to remove have already been removed.
Yeah, we didn't touch any of the ones, it's approximately right, yes.
Okay,
And then,
so-
of course, the one that we're not going to remove, definitely. That's the big
So-
tree.
Let me do my fundamental problem before I return to asking you questions, but so you understand where. So my difficulty is we approved a site plan. The site plan showed certain improvements, so showed certain trees being removed, and we had every expectation of that was what we were going to see. When we granted the use variance, that there was an expectation that most of the existing trees were going to remain, and that was part of at least my consideration of granting the conditional use variance in terms of your ability to preserve those trees, particularly along the southern property line. And, now basically you're removing most of those trees. Then secondarily, or not secondarily, but second, you decided to do this whole courtyard area that was never shown on any of the plans we had, and that led to removal of additional trees and seemingly is trying to address a stormwater problem. And I guess my question to you is, why didn't you realize the need to come back to this board before you started to remove the additional trees and to do those courtyard improvements?
Well, we submitted it, we submitted plans back in March with the expectation that it would be, the proposed modifications could be handled administratively. There were no changes or variances, and that was not the case. So we got feedback from Marisa and Tommy, and then we modified some of what we were proposing and resubmitted.
Yeah, but you did the work and then resubmitted is, I guess, my view of what has transpired. And we're kind of stuck with, so let's do go back over the drainage problem in the southwest corner. What is it now, and how are you proposing to address that?
We're proposing to address it by installing inlet 1A that picks up the overflow from Valley Road. And then we have also inlet 1 that, anything that bypasses inlet 1A will go into 1. And then we have a storm pipe there. And there is a storm pipe that's under there, and we were connected to it, but this will provide additional capacity to convey that runoff. And it will also, one of the more important things, we're lowering the grade there because it's very flat there, and the gym is flooded. I think, from what I understand from the applicant, 2 times, in its history, because there's not positive drainage. And the landscaping that's been planted there over the years has become overgrown, and the root systems, and I think if you look at the planner's report, it has photographs that illustrates the root systems are right at the surface and potentially or kind of creating a roadblock to overland relief, and allowing the flow to just spread out in any direction rather than channelizing it towards an inlet. And in this way, it's going onto the uncontrolled onto the adjoining properties as well. So I think keep going. Yeah, it's in this area.
I'm trying to match up your drainage plans, your demolition plan, your proposed planning plan. And you appear to be running the pipe in the middle of where the existing or trees are. Is that correct?
I would say, yeah, we're running it in like where there is, although it's not a well-defined swale, but there is some form of swale there. And it is, yeah, in between, we're running it in between the trees. I mean, in theory, if you look at what Tommy's put up as our A2 exhibit, that is the blue trees turned on with the pipe. I mean, in theory, you know, the pipe doesn't hit any of the symbols, but in reality, the trees are larger than that and they grow into one another. And again, from a functionality standpoint in terms of installing the drainage,
Now, that pipe and those inlets have already been installed?
no, we have not installed anything on the south side of the building, just up to inlet number 1, just what was previously approved. So in essence, what we've done is in terms of drainage, is we've installed everything virtually as previously approved. And this extension has not been constructed yet because it potentially requires the removal of those trees, and we have not done that work yet.
Now, so the line makes, so you've built up to where the jog in the line is?
Let me see. And you're looking at the plans that were submitted as part of this amended application, correct?
Correct.
So we are.
So you go slightly.
So your plans, you have a black and white copy, so you can't see the redness of the bubble. But if you look at where it says inlet number 1 has a grade elevation of 326 and an invert of 319.25, it's right next to the tag for lot number 10 that calls that out. That's as far as we've gone.
But you've done that jog in the pipe, which I assume was to get away from the stairs.
Where it goes underneath the sidewalk and it's by home plate kind of.
So did you consider jogging it back so it would be closer to the building, or jogging it the other way so you'd only have to move one of those rows of trees that are on either side of it?
Well, what we were thinking is that you can see in that line, there's a dash line that says SD, although the text is very small. That's supposed to represent the existing storm line that comes from the 20-inch clay pipe that comes from Valley. We created a separation between those two lines so you can potentially put a row of trees in there, another row of trees if need be. Or, depending on the condition of the trees and the clearances and whatnot, some of those trees could remain.
But you're and why are you just planting the skip laurel along the property line there?
Because there's actually power lines that serve both the school and the adjoining properties that are directly above that. An evergreen shrub that grows to about 12, 15 feet high. It does great in the shade, and there are a bunch of trees that'll remain there. And it's an evergreen. And it's an effective screen.
Does the
And
power
it's
line,
very deer resistant.
does
What's that?
the power line go all the way down to Central Avenue?
What happens is, and I could tell you, let me see. The power line, it's electric service from Valley down to Lot 7. There's a utility pole just right on the property line between the subject site and Lot 7. And then there's an underground service that goes and feeds the school. From that point, it's overhead wires. I'm told that is, and it could be electric as well as cable, but it's definitely cable. At some point, it's only cable. But again, I'm not certain, but I know it's power.
Okay, let's try. There's an above ground utility line that goes down to Central regardless of which
Yes,
particular.
all the way down that property line. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, but you're planting other trees along that property line.
Yes, and again, we're trying to do trees that won't won't require you to cut big hardwood trees to make a hole for the utilities to be maintained. They could be trimmed to a shorter height, but still be an effective screen.
To go back to the area adjacent to the school, what other alternatives were considered?
Oh, you mean previously? I had a scheme that called for, instead of one length of 100-foot pipe that goes from inlet 1 to 1A, I had two other ones on either side of that that would function as like an infiltration system that would collect the overland flow and infiltrate it. And it took up much more space and would definitely require removal of all those trees as indicated on the plan. So now we've got it. We're just going with the one. We think it's sufficient. But as mentioned earlier, we don't want to have to come back to the board because, we missed a tree that's absolutely needed to be removed. And again, I want to rely on our efforts to maintain whatever trees are there to the best of our ability. It becomes a constructability question more than anything.
Okay, the southeast corner, why can't the pipe go straight rather than bending to where the trees are?
Let me see. If the pipe went straight, let me just go back to that sheet. What we're trying to do is deflect the pipe to the north, so that area where some trees will remain, we still have an area that provides for tree replanting without a pipe going through there. So we'd be running it straight. We still had a plan to deflect it and then run it parallel. The original plan was run it straight, and just before it got to the trees that we knew were there, it would deflect southward to the southeast and then parallel that little wall and tie into inlet number 5. But we felt that it was best to put it under the synthetic turf so it doesn't interfere with the growth of any proposed trees and have a sharp cut through the trees rather than running parallel to it and affecting all the trees. So we've ensured that that area that was to remain a natural green area has adequate room for planting and to save the trees that we, to the maximum extent that we knew that were there. But again, we want to replant that area, and we've indicated such on the landscaping plan.
That's not my question. Where the pipe makes the bend towards the southern property line, why can't it just go straight out to the street there and not go through that area of trees?
Oh, because all drainage, the 3 subsurface drainage systems tie into an existing 12-inch, which is a very light colored line, a dashed SD, that was section of 55 lineal feet of 24-inch pipe. We basically stopped it right there, and then we paralleled the existing storm line because we don't want to change that existing storm line. We don't want to interfere with it. So we paralleled it and then tied in at central, because it would have just, you know, it would be an interference, you know, we couldn't cross.
But you're building a new inlet.
Yes.
And then how are you connecting to the existing storm sewer?
We're tying into the storm sewer in the street where the proposed invert is 311.5. What we're doing, that inlet's being installed. There's an existing little tiny inlet there that we're tying in. That's that area paralleling the wall where the overland relief is. Rather than have it, if there's any overland relief that's running along that curb wall, rather than have it just discharge out into the street, we're picking it up at that inlet. We're adding another point that it can go underground and not have to cross the sidewalk.
Okay. And so the stormwater for the site is ultimately ending up in that 10-inch township line?
It's ending up in the, let me see, what is B? It's a 15-inch, and then also there's two separate storm inlets that tie into a large arch culvert that's at the intersection of Bel Air. It's not shown on this plan, but it's shown on the city maps. And I've climbed up, it's like 6 by 6 or bigger box culvert. It's beginning of the natural channel on the east side of Central.
Right, where there was a stream. historically. But
Leave
but to get there, how is the stormwater getting from where it's leaving your property to it gets to, I'll call a large culvert that goes under the road and off
It's
to the
there are
east?
two. Yeah, you see on the screen there where that S sanitary manhole.
Yes.
Immediately to the left of that, there's an existing inlet that actually says a 15-inch tying into the back of it. That's really the 22-inch or 20-inch rather terracotta pipe. There may be it appears to be a 15-inch pipe, but then it turns into a 20-inch clay. That's the line that's coming from, that's the town line. And then the next inlet further up the street is the 12-inch line comes in from the athletics fields and from the school building. We're tying in at that location with this 32.5 linear feet of 12-inch.
Okay. So in a major storm, when there's going to be a lot of road runoff going into the existing storm sewer, is your stormwater going to back up onto the property?
It currently does now.
I know that.
And when you say
point of
it's really
The point of this was
really
to
the
fix the
town road.
existing drainage problem.
Right. So we're reducing the flow that's coming from the school's project, and we're conveying the flow that already flows through the site and makes it to those inlets.
Any other questions from members of the board? Oh, wait, just a minute. I wanted to go over one thing that I think on the engineer's memo. And in terms of, oh, you were speaking of the increase in pervious cover being 0.12 acres. Isn't it 0.12%?
I think, you got a good point there. Let me see. Let me see what it says. What drawing? It is, 0.12%.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that for the record. And
and go ahead.
And Marissa's memo requests, or which we may do more forcefully, replacing some of the non-native plantings that are proposed by native. Have you looked into that at all?
Yeah, again, we're trying to plant the native deciduous trees away from, we have them on the planting list, and we're trying to plant them away from the easement area and utilities. And we can plant, I guess we can plant more, but
it's
I
not.
don't.
It's
We'll
the
take the
shrubs that are. I mean,
recommendation.
the sweet gums are native, so that's not an issue using those. It's more the
right.
shrubs that I think her question was focused on.
Yeah, I'm looking for, I'm open to suggestions, but I think given the concerns of the neighbors and the desire to have a screen, I think it's an effective deviation from the native species. But I'm all ears if the town forester or arborist has a recommendation. But the two species we're favoring there are deer resistant and an effective evergreen screen. We can put native plantings in that perhaps aren't evergreen. I don't know how happy the neighbors would be about that.
No, I mean, there are native evergreens. I mean, that's not the issue.
Yeah,
Okay, are there other questions from members of the board before I open it up to the public?
Yeah, I have one quick question. Just looking at what we're looking at here, that 24-inch line is feeding into the 12-inch lines at inlet 5? Or is it the other way around? So there's no concern about the volume backing up, like again during a storm?
We're attempting to control the flow into that street because we want to have enough capacity underground, and at some point the concept is to at some point control the flow so it doesn't overwhelm the system there. And if that line surcharges upstream of the 12-inch, it will turn back into overland flow, which is what you have 100% of now. I think, if we don't do that, then we're surcharging a system that has 15-inch pipes going to the big box culvert at the intersection of Bel Air. So that's our method of, reducing the flow or controlling the outflow.
But basically reducing the size of the pipe by half, wouldn't that alone kind of restrict your flow?
Yeah. Yes.
But that pipe going in is just the pipe that's draining coming off of Valley Road, correct? It's not otherwise connected to the pipes that are going under the fields.
Exactly.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the board? Okay. We're going to open it up to members of the public. If you have questions, comments, if you've already called in or if you're on WebEx, we're going to unmute your microphones. If you're watching on channel 34 on the Montclair's YouTube channel, call in to the number that's on the screen and use the access code. We'll keep things open, but if there are any members who have already called in or on WebEx who would like to participate or ask questions or give testimony or have any comments on the application at all, now is the time to speak up. And we'll wait a while for anyone who's watching on TV or YouTube to have a chance to call in.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Okay.
Just tell us who you are first.
Yeah, sure. My name is Nigel Gilbert.
Right,
I reside
Gilbert,
at
Mr. Gilbert, hold on one second. Would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
And what's your address, please?
My address is 3 Bel Air Drive, the corner of Valley and Bel Air.
Thank you. So if you have any questions or comments.
Yes, I reside at lot 11 on, if you want to reference that on the plans. I will just make a statement right now and then get to my point. We've generally been supportive of the MKA project. However, based on my recent experiences with MKA since May, we do not believe that MKA is making the best effort to address an issue that their project will unduly burden us with. We have attempted to resolve a fencing issue that impacts the privacy and security of our property. MKA has generally been non-responsive or actually insensitive to these concerns. Unfortunately, it's forced me to actually bring this to the board's attention. As my property is at the corner lot of Bel Air and Valley, I'm sure you can appreciate that privacy and security is a concern that actually is a greater issue for us than actually any of our neighbors. And so about 8 years ago, we actually invested money into a privacy shield, which was woven into the existing fence dividing our properties. That shield has actually provided us with years of privacy from activity on Valley Road, as well as vagrancy issues that we've experienced on the MKA side. So while I don't take issue with the MKA project overall, I do have an issue with a seeming unwillingness to ensure that the replacement fence includes a privacy shield on our side to preserve our existing conditions that we have in our backyard. So again, I'm not looking to, for an improvement, but rather just a remedy in kind, for that. Now, looking at the plan itself, I've reviewed the MKA submitted plans, and I recognize that the replacement trees in the southwest corner, that, as noted earlier. However, the proposed plan, it does not address our privacy issues. If anything, on the contrary, it actually turns back the clock on issues that we've actually remedied. So our preference, to be quite honest with you, would be just to keep the status quo and simply have, have their fence connect to our already existing fence on our property line from lot 10. However, I do believe if it is that they replace our fence with replace the fence with a privacy shield, that's actually a reasonable middle ground, in the completion of their project. So conversely, I need to say this as well, based on my conversations with MKA, I would consider the creation of a double fence between our properties as unnecessary and actually spiteful, as we're looking to accommodate their project needs while preserving the quality of our backyard. So, as MKA stated in prior board meetings that they strive to be a good neighbor, I'm hoping that we can now reach an acknowledgement to replace the privacy shield that's on the new fence, which will be on our side. Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public who have questions or comments or testimony concerning the application?
I'm sorry, is there an opportunity for MKA to rebut my concerns? Because unfortunately, I've been communicating with them since May, and we've I haven't had any resolution. So I'm hoping that in this open forum that MKA can at least respond to the concerns that we have before, unfortunately, we're left to deal with whatever they decide to do.
One, it is up to them whether they want to respond to you. The board, of course, can impose conditions on them that may or may not address your concerns.
Mr. Chair, I think we would like to respond, but perhaps we can wait and see what other public
Yes.
or concerns there might be
Are
first.
there any other members of the public who have questions, comments, testimony about the application? Anything you want to say? Now is your opportunity. And again, call in if you're watching on channel 34 of the YouTube station as quickly as possible.
Everyone is unmuted, so just speak up if you'd like to make a statement.
Hi.
Last chance, if you have anything to say about the application or questions about the application. Okay. Mr. Trembulak, do you want to respond to the member of the public?
Well, what I'd like to do, I personally have no knowledge of the privacy shield that Mr. Gilbert was referring to, but I would ask if Jim Castelli is in the meeting. Who Jim testified during prior hearings. He's the in charge of facilities for MKA. Jim, are you there? Can you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
There you go.
Yes.
Okay. Would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
Yes, sir.
State your name and address, please.
James Castelli, 228 Orange Road, Montclair.
Hey, Jim, just remind the board as to your position with MKA.
Yes, I'm Director of Facilities and Director of Security.
Okay. You heard Mr. Gilbert's comments. Do you have any knowledge or familiarity with the issue that he mentioned regarding the privacy shield?
Yes, sir, I do. We've been in multiple conversations through emails. We were going back and forth trying to get a resolution, what was good for them, what was good for us. My most recent email to him was on August 12th at 8:24 a.m. when I asked him if he was available to meet at 9:30 so we could look at the fence situation. I says, we'll be able to remove the wood fence along your property line. Let me know if you're available. I never heard a response from him. And I also called him and left him a voicemail. I don't know if he received it or not. But yes, we absolutely said we would take that fence down. We offered him, we were going to put up an black aluminum fence so it would look nicer. And he could keep his screen. You know, we never said he had to take his screen down. Of course, we want him to keep whatever he has there. But if he's, you know, if they feel better with us removing that portion of the fence, absolutely, we said we would do it for them.
Okay. I think that's all we would have to say in response to that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, do you have any further witnesses?
No, we do not. That completes our case.
Okay, I'm going to open it up to the public one more time, and then you can do a summation. Are there, again, we're going to unmute anyone who's called in, and if anyone's watching on YouTube or channel 34, please call into the number on the screen as quickly as possible. But if you have anything you want to say now about the application, this is your opportunity.
Yes, this is Mr. Gilbert again. I just want to clarify, you know, because I think that we're talking about two different things here. You know, Mr. Castelli is referring to the temporary fence, which is already up. You know, what we're talking about is when you're moving forward to the permanent stage and the permanent fence. And so Mr. Castelli has provided me with what they plan on placing and putting in as a replacement fence between our two properties, which is a vertical fence. You know, aesthetically, I don't have an issue with that. The only issue that I have is that because it is simply a vertical fence, privacy is a significant issue. And what we simply requested was that they replace in kind the privacy shield. It shouldn't be something that we should have to bear in supporting their project. And I feel as if that's a fairly reasonable compromise, seeing that our preference would otherwise be to leave the fence alone the way that it actually is, you know, for the duration. But we're more than willing to support the project as long as it doesn't compromise our privacy. The privacy shield itself overall is something that they're familiar with. It's actually on parts of their property. It's something that is designed for vertical fences itself. So even from an aesthetic perspective, it won't infringe upon their design. And to be quite honest with you, that privacy shield will be set up on our property side as opposed to theirs. So you know, what I'm actually asking and appealing to the board for is, you know, to set that as a contingency as part of this plan, because we haven't gotten any further in conversations about, you know, the installation of a shield to protect our privacy.
Are there any other members of the public who have comments or questions? Last chance, call in if you're watching on TV or YouTube, and if you're already on, you're unmuted and start talking.
Could I respond to that fence question again, please?
One, yes, but let's make sure no one else in the public wants to say anything. Okay, Mr. Trembleak, you want to ask Mr. Castelli a question?
Right. Jim, you want to respond to Mr. Gilbert's last comment regarding the privacy shield?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm a little confused because he's talking about temporary fencing. The fence that is up now is a wood fence that was approved by the board. When we spoke through emails, we basically let them know that was the wood fence, but we would look into any ideas that they had. So this privacy screening, I'm a little confused. Is that going on his fence? Does he want us to remove our wood fence? Whatever he wants us to do, we'll do. We have no problem with it, but I just at this point, I'm really confused at what he's looking for.
Do you know what he's referring to when he talks about a privacy shield?
Well, he sent me an email one time with a privacy shield when we told him that we would replace our wood fence with an black aluminum fence. So it looked a lot nicer on that corner area. So I was assuming he meant to put it on our aluminum fence that we were going to install. Since then, I believe he wanted us to remove the whole wood fence on his, well, adjacent to his property, which we have no problem doing. So is that what Mr. Gilbert wants? All he has to do is tell us what he wants and we'll make it happen.
I don't know that we need to continue this dialogue. I think I'm going to recommend the board impose a condition that you continue, that the applicant continue discussions with Mr. Gilbert and try and resolve this, because I'm not sure how much it relates to the site plan we approved. I'm not sure any solution will matter to us, but I say that with some trepidation, but okay. Mr. Trembulak, do you want to sum up?
Yeah, just very briefly, Mr. Chairman. I mean, again, we're proposing revisions to the previously approved site plan. Nothing that's been proposed triggers any variances or waivers of any kind. Stormwater calculations have been reviewed and approved by the board engineer as being in compliance with state and municipal requirements. You know, I know the board has a concern, as it always does and always should, regarding tree removal. And, you know, unfortunately, it appears that some additional trees will probably need to be removed, more than was originally contemplated. However, you know, all I would say is whatever trees are removed are being replaced by 90 new trees, as well as, I think, probably an equal number of new shrubs. Substantial landscaping improvements are being provided along the southern property line in an effort to provide the highest degree of screening along that line for the benefit, you know, of the neighbors on Bel Air Drive. So I think the, you know, ultimate conditions are going to be better than exist now in terms of the screening. And also, I think the drainage conditions are going to be much improved. So there are obviously benefits to this project, as the board previously noted in approving it. And again, nothing we're proposing here triggers any variances. And the changes have been, you know, result from conditions in the field or other things that were not anticipated that will lead probably to some additional trees being removed. So, you know, I would ask the board to approve the amended site plan, subject to, you know, our compliance with the board engineer's report, as well as any other reasonable conditions that the board sees fit in imposing. So, thank you.
We'll start discussion with Mr. Moore.
Hi, I am in favor of the application. You know, I think that this is certainly an upgrade to the field with the drainage, with the trees that are being removed are being replaced. If not, more trees will be added to the area, and but also with the condition that we take into consideration of our neighbors and not making anything a hardship on them, but being able to, as you remove the fence, replacing in kind or what is agreed upon to provide proper privacy. This since the field is high functioning. So I yield my time.
Okay, Mr. Simon?
It seems that whether trees come out is really dependent on the construction crews. Is there any condition or oversight that we can add to make sure that they're just not doing what's easy versus making the best attempt to save the trees?
I will propose a condition which you can then propose to modify to try and address that concern.
Okay. Other than that, I'm generally in favor. I just want to make sure they're not taking shortcuts. Thank you.
Mr. Vieira?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm also in favor of the application with the condition that what Mr. Simon mentioned, and also a condition regarding the comment of the owner of Lot 11 regarding the screening and the fence. Thank you.
Ms. Harris?
I'm also in favor of the application with the condition that any trees that are ultimately removed are replaced. It was unclear based on the table on the drawings, exactly how many of the 29 trees are will be replaced, but I'd say whatever's ultimately removed should be replaced somewhere on the site.
I'm in favor of the application, but first, before I go into that, I find what has transpired on this site to be totally unacceptable. This is a sophisticated applicant who has been before this board on multiple occasions, both on this site and on other sites that they own. So they certainly can't say they thought they could just go and do these things and go and ignore the conditions we imposed and come back largely after the fact and say, oops, we screwed up. We removed 12 trees that we said were not going to be removed. And oh, by the way, we have to remove 14 additional trees besides that we showed as being saved. I would have had not a different end result, but different conditions if at the point they were coming in for the use variance, they had said we need to remove 29 trees to accommodate what we're proposing to do to the property. Even more inexcusable is what they did to the courtyard area, which was not shown as being touched on any prior plans. And suddenly they did extensive work there. Don't have any issues with it, but the normal sequence is first you get approvals and then you do the work, not you do the work and then go and get approvals. And, this is just not acceptable from a sophisticated applicant who has had frequent applications. Having the issue I have with the plans has to do with the area in the southwest corner. Our engineer indicated that the applicant needs to support the proposal for the removal of the 15 trees in the southwest corner area. I was not convinced by the testimony tonight as to why all of those needed to be removed, why the pipe couldn't be shifted to the left or the right so one row of those trees could have been saved. So I think, and let me pick up with in terms of conditions, I believe, of course, now I can't find it, all of the conditions of the board's prior approval should be continued. Just checking to make sure there's nothing. Okay, no. Okay, so all those conditions should be continued. And then we should impose conditions 5, 6, some of which the applicant said he's provided to the engineer, but I think we should put the conditions just like we haven't gotten feedback from the engineer on that. To require that the engineer revise the plans for the southwest corner, so a maximum of 8 trees have to be removed, and if they cannot meet that condition, that means unfortunately they have to come back here. I'm assuming question 8 is a moot point at this point, but to the extent that it isn't, that to the extent any of those 3 trees remain, every effort should be made to save them. So we're not doing condition 9 as much as I am. But except the 24-inch deciduous tree, that part of that condition should remain. And the third paragraph, the last paragraph of that condition should also be met. That the applicant shall modify the proposal to include additional native trees. I'm not going to specify a number, but they should work with the township to come up with additional native trees. Just want to correct one thing Mr. Trembulac said. There are only 33 shrubs. I'm not saying only in the sense of they're not enough, but there are 33 shrubs in addition to the 90 trees that are proposed. There are not almost 90 shrubs proposed. If they need to remove more than 29 trees, they have to come back to the board before they are removed. So if the contractor says my backhoe will knock it over or whatever, and that makes a 30th tree, you're coming back and visiting us and justifying the need to remove anything more than 29 trees. And the applicant shall meet with Mr. Gilbert, the owner of property at 3 Bel Air Drive, to discuss the fencing issue. I think this should be an in-person meeting to go over at the property to discuss what he wants and try and reach a resolution. I'm not going to mandate something. But I think there seems to be something of a miscommunication as to what he wants and what the applicant is willing to do. And if that resolution involves not having the wooden fence that the board previously approved, that is a result that does not require them to come back to the board. I think that covers everything. Did I miss anything from board members or any further comments from board members? Okay, someone want to make a motion? Okay.
Motion to approve with the conditions specified by the chair.
Is there a second?
A second.
Uh, Tommy, you want to call the roll? Just,
Yeah, sure. 1 second. Mr. Harrison,
yes.
Mr. Simon,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Vieira,
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Okay, do we want to take a break or do the last application?
5-minute break.
Okay,
Before we do that, I have to recuse myself from the last application.
okay, so lucky you, you get to go home. Okay, so we'll come back at 10 after.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Mr. Moore, if you're present, let us know. Okay. The next application is that of Joy and Walter Taylor. It's an application to install a generator on the property located at 5 Franklin Place. Property is in the R1 one-family residential zone and is designated on the township tax maps as lot 39.01 and block 4008. The variance is requested from Montclair Code Section 347-22A to allow for an accessory structure to be located in the front yard. Our taxes paid, and it's a notice in order.
Yes.
Are the applicants present?
I am.
Okay, would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board? Would you please raise your right hand?
I do.
Okay, state your name and address, please.
Joy Taylor, 5 Franklin Place.
State your name and address, please.
Joy Taylor, 5 Franklin Place, Montclair. Joy Taylor, 5 Franklin Place, Montclair.
Ms. Taylor, you may need to mute some of your other devices that you have on.
Okay.
Are you area code 862?
Yes, I
Okay.
am.
Okay, I've muted there's 2 other callers on, and I'm not sure who they are, but I've muted them. I don't know if you have anybody else on the meeting that you'd like me to unmute.
Yes, probably my neighbors. The
Okay,
neighbors
we had an opportunity,
most
yes.
impacted. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, why don't you go ahead, Ms. Taylor, and describe what you want to do?
And also, Ms. Taylor, I have your plans and things that I can pull up on the screen if you'd like. So just let me know if you want me to pull anything up.
That would be great. Good evening. members of the board. My name is Joy Taylor. My husband, Walter, and I own the property at 5 Franklin Place in Montclair. We're proposing to locate an accessory structure in a front yard. This accessory structure is a home standby generator measuring approximately 4 feet wide, 2 feet high, and 2 feet deep. The generator and its proposed placement are shown on a copy of our survey, which is included with this application. 5 Franklin Place, as you see on the survey, is a corner property. The front of the house faces Franklin Place. However, what we use as our side yard actually faces Lincoln Street, which makes it a front yard per township regulations. This is why we're also proposing and have already begun to add evergreen landscaping to cover the generator if the proposed variance is approved. In addition, we are pleading hardship because we really have no backyard in which to legally locate the generator, given the proximity of the building to the property line, as well as the requirements of the generator itself, such as a minimum of 5 feet from any window or door. Indeed, there is only one section of our property where a variance would not be required. However, township regulations and generator requirements would place the generator where a structure already exists. A gazebo that was built as an integral part of the property's original construction. And if you look at the survey, ladies and gentlemen, the gazebo is actually shown on the, it looks like picture 6 of 6 actually gives you the picture of the gazebo. And on the survey, it's on the bottom left-hand corner. If you see that structure, the gazebo.
Yes, we see it.
In any event, having no legally acceptable or practical location to place the generator, we chose the proposed location because it offers several benefits. First, it is an open space that offers the best air circulation, therefore mitigating risks from carbon monoxide emissions from the generator, not only for us, but also for all our surrounding neighbors. Second, we want to continue to be good neighbors. Proposing a variance for the backyard or the opposite side of the building places the generator closer to both of our nearest neighbors' living spaces, as well as areas where our neighbors normally gather with their family and friends. Third, the Lincoln Street side of the house, that is the wall behind the generator, is our garage. So the generator would be away from our family's living space. And last but not least, our main electrical panel and gas meter are on the Lincoln Street side of the building, which lowers the generator's installation cost. Tommy's screen is showing the view from Lincoln Street onto the side of our house. I'm not sure if you can see the bamboo stakes that are between those windows. The bamboo stakes would actually represent where the generator would be placed. Do you see the stakes there? Bamboo stakes. And the
Yes, we see.
behind the wall, behind the wall is actually our garage. Now, this application includes our landscaping plan, which is also drawn to scale. I'm not sure if Tommy's got the landscaping plan available.
He's put it on
There
the
it is.
screen.
Thank you, Tommy. Thank you. The application includes our landscaping plan that shows the proposed Lincoln Street front yard more close up. We included the generator, the measurements between the generator and the property lines, the minimum measurements between the generator and the building, as well as the species of new evergreen landscaping that we're proposing. That concludes my presentation, and I wonder if any of the members of the board have questions.
Okay, Mr. Moore, do you have any questions? Mr. Moore? We will come back to him. Mr. Simon, do you have any questions?
Yes, I just want to confirm that the generator will be powered by natural gas.
Yes, it will be.
Okay, that was my only question. Thank you.
Mr. Vieira, do you have any questions?
The question I have is, do you think the generator will be visible from Lincoln Street looking at your house?
We do not want the generator to be visible. We intend to provide cover for that generator. And the cover will take the form of evergreens.
And you have looked at the generator specifications as far as the dimensions, so it will be in line with what you're proposing?
Yes, sir, we have. And in fact, the picture that Tommy has in front of you now actually includes the evergreens that have been planted since our original application was submitted. So you'll see that we have begun to provide the cover of that generator that we're proposing. The variance that we're proposing, rather.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Moore, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, do you have any questions?
Yes, have you taken into consideration the noise levels of this of the generator?
Yes, we have, sir. That is one of the reasons why we placed the generator where we did.
And just the natural noise, not only the location, but the natural noise, is it typically a more quieter sounding generator in comparison to others, or have you done any?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. In fact, we have. I have the model of generator. I apologize. We are intending to purchase a model of generator that would be relatively quiet.
Okay.
I just have a couple questions. Do you know what the distance is between your house and the gazebo?
Very interesting. Sorry, I actually don't have that measure. I apologize.
And behind your house, between the gazebo and the house, is there a walkway leading around to the narrow side yard of the house?
No, there is a walkway actually that goes from the walkway goes from the front courtyard and down the rear side of the house. And that's essentially where the walkway ends, is where you see those steps.
No, if you, Tommy, their sixth picture. Yeah. It looks like there's
Yeah,
a
where the
path that goes around the back of the house from the
The path-
courtyard that enters those French doors.
The path that you see actually goes toward that fence, the concrete fence,
Right.
and then it essentially ends there.
But it would limit where you could place the generator in the rear property area.
By rear property area,
The rear property, the side that would be conforming.
I'm sorry, sir. Would you repeat that for me? I'm just not clear on what you're asking.
Besides the gazebo, are there other limitations on your being able to put the generator along that wall of the house?
Yes, sir. One of the requirements of the generator is that it has to be a minimum of 5 feet away from every window and every door.
Are there other questions from members of the board? Okay. We're going to unmute the microphones. Are there any members of the public who have questions, testimony, statements concerning the application? If you're watching on channel 34, the YouTube station, here's the number to call in and the access code to enter if you're doing that and you want to participate, call in as quickly as you can. There are any members of the public who are already on, please speak up now.
Yes, I'm a member of the public and neighbor of the home. I would like to ask a couple of questions.
Okay, you can ask questions or make a comment. So would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
State your name and address, please.
Kim Walker. My address is 95 Lincoln Street in Montclair.
Okay, you can go ahead.
I've lived here for 25 years. I have a couple of questions for the applicant. First is, are you a resident of the property? Do you live on the premises?
Yes, we do.
I appreciate the architect who spoke earlier about the preservation of the look of Montclair and wanting to build in a certain way. I have always felt that that home, which I believe was built in 2005, did not reflect the look of the neighborhood. So I am concerned about different structures or things that are going there that will continue to perhaps take away just my opinion from the way it looks. I live on the street. Since what I'm hearing and what I see in your drawings, the generator will be on the street side, on the Lincoln Street side, which is where I guess my sidewalk faces. I'm about 2 houses away from your home, and I do see it every day. I am concerned about the noise, and I know you say you will purchase something that you believe to be relatively quiet. I would like to know what model and the decibels, because I know that there is state ordinance and perhaps town as well, and want to make sure that it will fall within, even though I believe the size of the generator you're talking about is small and will probably be bad, but I would like to know the decibels.
Certainly. The model that we're looking at is actually a Generac model 007226. It's 18 kilowatt, 60 hertz, 70 amps. I'm afraid that I don't have here the actual decibel level. But I do know that we asked the proposed contractor, which is Air Group, that one of the requirements that we wanted was that this generator be, if not the most quiet, then among the quietest generators that we could purchase.
And is the intended purpose for the power outages, things like that, to have it on for that purpose?
Yes.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who have questions or statements or testimony, any comments whatsoever about this application? If you're already on, please speak up. If you're watching on YouTube or channel 34, please call in to the number that will return to the screen shortly. Ms. Taylor, you had indicated that you thought some of your neighbors were going to testify in support. Do you know if they've called in?
I do not know that, sir. They are the neighbors. We asked our neighbors at 88 Lincoln Street, which is the property on Lincoln Street right next to ours. And specifically, they are the property that are most negatively impacted by the placement of this generator. So we thought it was very, very important that if they had a concern, that we work with them to mitigate any, as I said, it's important to us to get along with our neighbors. And so we have
on, but I don't see that they're speaking.
Yeah, okay. One last chance, if you have any questions, statements, testimony, any comments on the application, if you're on, speak up now, and if you had an ample opportunity to call in, but if you were in the midstream, we'll wait a little longer or dial real quick. Okay. Ms. Taylor, is there anything further you want to add before we discuss and vote on the application?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll start discussion with Mr. Simon.
I'm in favor of the application. I think the placement of the generator makes the most sense considering her neighbors and just the general pattern that we've seen in the past. So I'm in favor.
And Mr. Vieira?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm generally in favor of the application. I just have a concern about the precedent. I understand the lot is highly unique. The house is unique, but I will be in support as long as the I guess the shrubbery is installed, that it prevents the generator to be visible from the Lincoln Street. Thank you.
Mr. Moore?
I'm in favor. Sorry, I have a dog in the background, barking at the work being done outside, but I'm in favor of the application. I'm in favor.
I'm also in favor. We have had a couple of these corner lots with either generators or compressors, and we have approved at least some of those applications to the limits here. Clearly, the side opposite Franklin Place, there's not enough room for it. I would have been happier knowing what the distance was between the gazebo and the house to know whether there was potentially room back there, but given the location of the electric, where that's going into the house and the gas is going to the house, this is clearly the applicant has demonstrated based on the existing location of the house and that they qualify for a C1 variance. This will not result in a substantial detriment to the neighborhood or a substantial impairment of the zone plan if the following conditions are imposed. One, that the generator is for emergency use only, and that any testing of the generator be done between 10 o'clock and 4 o'clock on weekdays, and that as shown on the informal plan the applicant submitted, that 6 Wichita blue junipers or comparable evergreens be installed at the time the generator is installed, and at the time of planting of those plants that they be at least as high as the generator is. Any further discussion among board members? And if not, does someone want to make a motion? We can't go home until you make a motion.
Motion to approve the application as specified.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Before we adjourn, okay, so we're not going to have the meeting the first Wednesday in September. I likely have a problem with the third Wednesday. We'll see how that evolves. And then we had discussed at the last meeting that we will resume in-person meetings with the October meeting, which I guess is the second Wednesday. Is that correct, Tommy?
I don't have the schedule in front of me, but I can look while you continue to.
I don't have anything else to say, and my voice is clearly not going to last much longer. Okay. So enjoy the rest of your summer, and someone needs to make a motion to adjourn. Or we'll sit here longer.
I make a motion to adjourn for the evening.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Have a good summer.
Take care.
Good night,
Bye,
you too.
everybody.
Have a great summer, everyone.
Right.